Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time is an audio review. And I mean literally an audio review. It's the first of the Big Finish audio series of Doctor Who. We're delving into the monthly adventures with the Sirens of Time. This review is slightly different because there's no video, really. The YouTube channel does have images. Mostly it'll be the image of the cover of the release itself, and I'm doing this as part of the cycle of reviews that we'll be doing over the next couple of years, and the aim is that you'll have a classic series review, then you'll have the audio review of a Big Finish audio play, and then you'll have the new series review. But let's get into this one. We are talking about the very first Doctor Who audio release by Big Finish Productions back in 1999. Hard to believe it's been 22 years that they've been doing this. And the monthly adventures range kept going until the middle of this year, 2021. So there's 275 of them to go through over time. But we start with the very first one, the one that set the bar. And we're talking about the Sirens of Time. Now there's no television companion equivalent here for this set of reviews, for this type of review. So we'll just go in like the new series and go straight into the plot elements and the bits I like. So the basic plot is that the Doctors, the 7th, the 5th and the 6th, are all caught up within the same plot point of the Sirens of Time, or the Knights of Alicia, coming in and interfering with history. The Knights initially don't have one of their first protagonists, Sancroft, killed off by some alien individuals. That's the 7th Doctor's episode. He effectively saves Sancroft from being shot. Then we have the 5th Doctor, who helps even further because of the knock-on effects of not sinking the Lusitania, because he ends up getting caught in the U-20 U-boat, which ends up sinking the Lusitania in World War One. In our timeline, in the timeline of the story, that doesn't happen. Ultimately, and this is the most interesting nuance, a person who died in the Lusitania in the original timeline doesn't, and kills Alexander Fleming before he finds penicillin, and it causes knock-on effects to Earth's history, and it gives a way into the Knights of Alicia. And then you've got the 6th Doctor, who ends up coming to a place called the Kurgan Wonder on a science ship. The Kurgan Wonder is basically the explosion point of the Temporon being imprisoned in space. The Temporon is a mythical time creature that becomes quite prominent in the last episode. And the 6th Doctor ends up being forced to release him, and helps the Knights even more because the Temporon is now released and they can utilise its energy to help their conquest across the world. The 3 Doctors then meet up in the last episode of the 4-part story, and they're on Gallifrey, and Gallifrey has been ravaged by the Knights of Alicia, and all the Time Lords have now been used with their life forces to help revive the Knights, who are really decimated and horrible and really are falling apart physically, and they need the life forces of other beings to keep going, and the Time Lords are the last ones. So that's the basic plot of the 4 episodes, and it's interesting having separate episodes for each Doctor to start with to give you an idea of flavour of each of the incarnations. We'll go through the first episode to start with, which is the 7th Doctor. Now, the Doctor lands on a planet which is quite barren. He doesn't know the name of it. It was never revealed what the name of the planet was. And he ends up trying to save this girl called Elenia, who's sinking through the quicksand. And Elenia comes across initially as like a traditional companion, kind of, help me, Perils of Pauline, all this sort of stuff. And Elenia is one version of multiple characters acted by the same entity, which we'll get to later on. Overall, it's a very basic introduction to the 7th Doctor. It's not the manipulative 7th Doctor. It seems to be somewhere in between. And the Doctor's trying to help, but it's more an early 7th Doctor kind of incarnation here than a manipulative Doctor that we have later on. And it's not that Doctor, it seems to be a kind of watered down version of it. This episode includes the appearance of one of the best actors in the main range for the monthly adventures for the first 10-15 years, and that's Maggie Stables. Will become Evelyn Smythe later in the year. I think it was beginning of 2000 as Marrying Conspiracy. One of the most prominent actresses in the series, is, in my opinion, makes her first appearance in the Doctor Who audios as the jailer of Sancroft, Ruthly. Comes across grumpy, fed up, mentions hate changing the sheets and caring for Sancroft, and is brutally murdered by the aliens that come in to kill Sancroft, which is really interesting. That's the highlight of the episode for me, is Maggie Stable's performance. And nothing on the other actors in here. I mean, Sylvester McCoy is being the Doctor. I mean, that's the thing. They are the Doctor that they're playing. But to have Colin McIntyre there as Sancroft, and then you've got, of course, Sarah Mowat playing Elenia to start with. She ultimately becomes another character, which we'll get to in a minute. It's interesting the way that episode works. The second episode is the Fifth Doctor's instalment, where he's on the U-20 U-boat that was supposed to sink the Lusitania. First of all, the TARDIS lands on the ship that's about to be destroyed, and the Doctor meets up with Helen, who is sneaking about and trying to get some... But the Doctor gets locked out the TARDIS. He's get told by the Time Lords, who are trying to interface with him in every time zone, to get out the TARDIS or get away from here, because they've recognised that the Doctor's involved in this whole thing with the timelines being distorted, and they want to try and avoid him from getting there. Initially, they try and get the Doctor to get back to the TARDIS. He can't do that, and then they end up trying to kill him, which is interesting. It's a weird one, this one. I mean, it does give the qualities of the Fifth Doctor, his kind of frustration of trying to get authority to listen to him, which he seems to have consistently throughout the whole of his run in the television series as well. So it is partially reflection. It is difficult, though, with this story to get all the flavours and nuances of the Doctors, because you've got only basically 25 minutes to go through with them. And there's not enough plot, really, in this one, I think, really, to do it. It's a real runaround. The Doctor gets saved by the U-boat captain. The TARDIS is floating where the ship it originally landed on sank. The U-boat captain is interestingly played by Mark Gatiss, but is not seen as a big character really in this one. He's there as a means to an end for the Doctor to get back to the TARDIS, and with the U-boat being turned around, they miss the Lusitania, and the Lusitania doesn't get sunk. It's a weird one. It's not the strongest of the four, really. You've then got part 3, which is the Sixth Doctor's setup. I think this is probably a later Colin Baker incarnation, because it's certainly a softer Sixth Doctor. You still get the irascible grumpiness when he feels the situation needs it, but he's more affable. Ellie is the character that Sarah Mowat is playing here, and she's found out a recording of a creature that is involved in the Kurgan Wonder, and she's found footage that she wants to release to the scientists who are on this science ship, marvelling at the Kurgan Wonder, this temporal anomaly. And then a time storm happens off the back of the Kurgan Wonder that kills all the crew, apart from an android sub-lieutenant, second in command, Ellie, and the Doctor. And at that point, when we've got the recording there, it talks about the Temporon. And the Doctor's aware of the Temporon as a creature and thinks that he needs to save the Temporon. But the Time Lords telepathically get through the android and say, don't release the Temporon. At least, well, they try to, but the communication's a bit rubbish. By this time, the Time Lords are about to be overtaken by the Knights of Felicia. There's a nice little subplot that goes through all 3 episodes that ties them together. And the end of the episode is the Sixth Doctor being smothered by the Temporon. And the difference of each of the episodes is it stops with that cliffhanger for each of the Doctor's perils, and that doesn't get resolved straight away. This is the first one it does get resolved. Part 4 starts with the Sixth Doctor getting his bit resolved. He then gets transported to Gallifrey and meets up with the other Doctors, and there's a little bit of Doctor argy-bargy between the 3 of them. But actually, if you think about it, out of the 3 of them that come together and do the plan, the one that seems to lead is the 6th. I don't know why, but it feels to me that Colin Baker's the Doctor that leads with the 3 of them. I think possibly because of the personalities and the way it works and everything else. I think that's quite interesting. But there's nice banter between them, and you've got the 7th Doctor thinking away a little bit. You've got the 5th Doctor looking, I don't know if it's a flapping motion or whether it's something different, but he's always comes across as a little unsure and always fighting back. And he's the one that actually gets into trouble. He breaks his leg as they fall down a shaft to escape from the Knights of Felicia that they find on Gallifrey, and then in the deep bowels of the Panopticon. He's the one that breaks his leg. He's the one that gets captured by the Knights. Probably part of the plan, while the 6th and 7th go speak to the Temporon and release the Temporon. Although obviously that's a bad idea. And we find resolution about what's happened with the other episodes and how all of them have been resolved. So the 7th Doctor managed to avoid murder and Sancroft lives. The 5th Doctor does manage to get back into the TARDIS. What I understand with the 5th Doctor, if I remember rightly. And the 6th Doctor we've had that resolution for. But they all end up on Gallifrey. They all end up working together with a telepathic conference, that contact that we had in 3 Doctors. And that comes back again. That seems to be the way the Doctors communicate with each other to get things up to date. And the Doctors then are using a Type 70 TARDIS to go back and fix things. because they meet up with Lyaina, who turns out to be one of the time sirens, and she's the one that's been manipulating everything, and she's the one you hear that kind of sing-song every time that she turns up. The doctors all recognise it, but they can't figure out what it is, and it's her that really is the driving influence here with the whole story. The doctors realise that, no, we can't do it. The doctors try with the Type 70, the Type 70 doesn't work, and then they go back and they release the Temporon, and Temporon actually goes and fixes everything. So Sancroft gets killed, the Lusitania sunk, and the Type 70, including Vansel, arrives without knowing why he'd arrived, and this is the other character I'll go into here. The plot ends with a kind of basic run-around story, and it's different from the others because the traditional story for Doctor Who, even in the audio plays to an extent, is first episode setup, second and third are kind of run-arounds and try and develop the plot, and the fourth crams everything together and off you go, it's all sorted. It's an interesting setup. We've touched on the characterisation of the 5th, 6th and 7th Doctors. Now, with the audio plays, they tend to have the cast members that will do multiple parts. There's not too many of them in this one. The main one to have all these different characters is John Wadmore, who plays the Commandant in the 2nd episode. Lieutenant Zetner, he plays the android Azimendar in the 3rd episode. And then Solonek, one of the knights in the 4th episode. Mark Gatiss has multiple roles as well. He plays the captain of the U-boat in the 2nd episode. He is the captain of the science ship in the 3rd episode, and he's one of the Knights of Alicia. And then Nicholas Briggs starts his voice talents with the Temporon, and he plays the Judger robots, the guards for Ruthie in the 1st episode. All of them are fairly strong performances. John Wadmore has the most to do in regards to the guest cast here, with all the different characters, and he, along with Sarah Mowat, are the only two that carry through for all the episodes. So it's most of the episodes, which is really cool. I've mentioned Maggie Stables with Ruthie. I love the characterisation of it. You've then got Andrew Fetz, who plays Radley and Schmidt, who's the guy that the Time Lords telepathically take the conference over to try and persuade the Doctor to go back to the TARDIS. They use him to kill the 5th Doctor, don't they? Yeah, they use him to kill the 5th Doctor, which is interesting. But you've got the kind of subplot that goes all the way through. The Time Lords realise there's a break in the time stream. They're trying to figure out where the cause is. They realise it's the Doctor. That's come off the back of a CIA agent, the Celestial Intervention Agency agent, Coordinator Vansel, who turns up in a later story in monthly range early on. This one, he's more a job's worth. He's trying to do his job. He's trying to fix things. He is circumventing some of the Lord President's commands to try and get stuff done to try and stop the Doctor, because he feels the Doctor's the threat. He ultimately gets killed in the timeline with the Knights of Alicia, but then obviously gets restored. The start of the story comes with Vansel turning up in the antechambers in Gallifrey, and he gets all the Chancellor Guard to take him to the President to try and solve this issue initially. When he does the same scene again at the end, he doesn't know why he's there. He's kind of forgotten about, which is weird. He's forgotten what he's there for, but that's a nice little comedy element. But it opens the door for Vansel to come back, and he does come back in a later Big Finish audio. Michael Wade's basic President material, there's not much really to the character. He's just there as a kind of objecting force. It's not so much like the 3 Doctors, where you got the Lord President who's actually a bit more Thing or Barusa in the 5 Doctors. He's just like the figurehead, effectively. The Vansel's got to try and take command over. The main lead really is Sarah Mowat, who plays all the different girls. So you've got Elenia, you've got Ellie, and you've got Helen, along with Lyaina. Lyaina seems to be the leader in here. And Sarah Mowat's good at playing all the different characterizations. And it's kind of like, you've got the typical falling over herself, Perils of Pauline, kind of pseudo-companion in Elenia. You've then got the kind of gritty Ellie, the Liverpudlian, in the 2nd story. And then you've got Helen, who seems to be a spy of sorts in the ship in the 3rd episode. And then she is Lyaina, and it turns out that this is the same person. It's a time siren who's done these different incarnations and trying to get the Doctor away and trying to lead the Doctor away. And there's elements in every story where Lyaina's incarnation is trying to stop the Doctor from doing what he needs to do. And it does frustrate the Doctor a little bit, especially the 6th on this one. But overall, the cast is pretty tight. You got to remember they record these in 2 days. The cast is pretty tight. It does flow along. It's interesting. There's not much music. Big Finish is very good with its orchestral scores in its later stories. The first few aren't really big on the orchestral scores. This is more like punctuation of music. It's not majorly interfering with it. There's elements, and there's atmospheric elements there with the theme tune, the Doctor Who theme tune coming in at various points, and there is some punctuation, but it's not overly meddlesome. It's pretty quiet. And the writing of the story as well is not bad. It's interesting how it all works out and how the story is written, and done in a very traditional way. And it had a very difficult thing to do with this first story. It had to bring in the classic series fans, but also give something new for them to latch on and continue with. And I think it does a decent job of that. There are better stories in the Big Finish range, which we'll come to, but there are a couple that aren't as good. Good, decent start. It's enough to keep people interested. I like listening to it on a regular basis if I get the chance. There is a situation where the first 50 Doctor Who audios are available on Spotify. Class it's the main range on there, but most people now class it the monthly adventures. It's interesting what you call it. I would call it the monthly adventures now, to be fair, because that's what they were. The main range is no longer there. But this is the first of 275. Is it okay? Yeah, I like it. I don't mind it. It's certainly a good one to start with. Out of the three leads, I would say that Colin Baker's the one that shines, and Colin Baker's the one, and this one you can actually see the development of what the Sixth Doctor would be in the later stories in the Big Finish main range here. So I get the feeling that all the actors have got involved and said they want to make developments and change their things, because they all have developments really over time in their characterizations to an extent. But Colin Baker's the one that stands out for me. He's the one that stands out on this story of the three leads. And it's a shame because I love the Seventh Doctor, but I feel Colin Baker's the better one of the three of them here. Don't get me wrong, Peter Davison does a solid performance, and he does in every story he's in on the main range or monthly adventures, but this one, he is the weakest of the three. And not by much, but he is the weakest of the three. Overall, what do I think of this ratings-wise? Well, we are going to do the same ratings as we do normally. There is no look over the ratings within the rest of the reviews done so far, because it's a slightly different setup. So this one, I'm just going to give you the rating of 3.5 TARDISes out of 5. That's it. Thanks guys for watching as always, or listening in this case. If you like this video, don't forget to like it and share it with the hashtag teamstructor. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out. General rule, new video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT. It's the end of Who month. Thank you very much everybody for watching all the reviews this month. It's been quite a bit of fun and quite good views and everything going on here. And we'll do this next year as well, as always. Next week, we have a vlog, and it's a vlog to St Andrew's Cathedral. I will see you then on that video. But thank you for watching or listening to this review, and yeah, I will see you later.